They called him Havoc, and the name wasn't a joke. This 95-pound German shepherd had already sent 3 experienced military handlers to the hospital, one with a broken arm, another with 40 stitches across his chest. The army was hours away from putting him down, permanently declaring him too dangerous, too broken, too far gone. But standing outside that kennel, watching this so-called monster pace and snarl, was a Delta Force operator who'd just returned from the worst mission of his life. A mission where he'd lost everything that mattered, and he was about to do something that would make every handler on that base think he'd lost his mind, because he didn't see a vicious animal, he saw a mirror. Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from, and if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more. Fort Bragg. North Carolina had seen its share of difficult animals over the decades, but nothing in the K-9 training unit's history had prepared them for what arrived on a cold February morning in 2019. The dog came with a file thicker than most soldiers' service records, and a warning label that made seasoned handlers shake their heads. Havoc, a 3-year-old German shepherd from a specialized breeding program in Belgium, had washed out of every single training protocol the military could throw at him. Not because he lacked intelligence or drive, but because he had too much of both. He was smart enough to see through every handler's technique, and strong-willed enough to reject their authority with terrifying force. The final incident report before his arrival at Bragg was clinical in its language, but the subtext was clear. Subject displays extreme aggression toward all handling personnel, demonstrates zero-trust behaviors, and exhibits what appears to be severe trauma response to standard training methods. Recommendation: immediate termination. But that termination order got delayed because of one man, Master Sergeant Eli Thorne. Delta Force operators don't typically involve themselves in K-9 training unit problems, but Eli wasn't thinking clearly anymore, and that's exactly why he found himself standing in front of Kennel 7 at 0600 hours, staring at a dog that everyone else had given up on. The nightmare always started the same way. Eli Thorne could smell the dust before he could see it. That thick, choking Syrian dust that got into everything. Your boots, your weapon, your lungs. The kind of dust that tasted like ancient stone and diesel fuel and something else. Something darker. He'd relive it frame by frame, every single time. His team moving through the narrow streets of Al-Hasaka at 0200 hours. 6 operators, 1 mission. Extract a high-value target before dawn. Simple, clean. They'd done it 100 times before, except nothing about that night was simple. Eli would wake up right at the moment when Titan, his German shepherd partner of 4 years, suddenly stopped, just froze mid-step. Ears forward, body rigid. That low growl that meant one thing: danger. And then the world exploded. The IED took out their lead vehicle. The secondary ambush came from 3 directions. Insurgents who'd been waiting, who'd known exactly where they'd be, exactly when. Someone had talked. Eli remembered the chaos, the screaming, the distinctive crack of AK-47 fire mixing with the controlled bursts from American rifles. He remembered going down hard when a round caught his vest. I remembered the breath leaving his body. I remembered looking up and seeing the fighter standing over him, rifle aimed at his head. He remembered Titan launching himself at that man. 90 pounds of trained fury hitting the insurgent like a missile, jaws clamping down, saving Eli's life in the split second it took for him to recover and return fire. But what Eli remembered most, what woke him up screaming 3 months later in his quarters at Fort Bragg, was the sound Titan made when the second fighter shot him. Not a bark, not a growl, a yelp, high-pitched, confused, The sound of betrayal, like he couldn't understand why his body wasn't working anymore. Eli had killed both fighters, had crawled to Titan, had held his partner as the light faded from those intelligent brown eyes, had whispered promises he couldn't keep. "You're okay, boy. You're gonna be okay. Stay with me. Please stay with me." But Titan didn't stay. The mission was considered a success. They'd extracted the HVT, only one casualty. A dog. Just a dog. That's what the after-action report said. Eli Thorne had spent 12 years in Delta Force. He'd operated in 17 countries. He'd been shot twice, stabbed once, and blown up more times than he cared to count. He had commendations and medals locked in a drawer he never opened. None of it mattered anymore, because when he closed his eyes, all he saw was Titan. All he heard was that sound. The army psychiatrist at Fort Bragg was a kind woman named Dr. Sarah Chen. She had a gentle voice and patient eyes, and she told Eli things he already knew: post-traumatic stress disorder, survivor's guilt, acute grief response. She prescribed medication, recommended therapy, suggested a medical discharge if he couldn't get it under control. But here's what Dr. Chen didn't understand. Eli didn't want to get it under control. The pain was all he had left of Titan. The nightmares were the only place he could still see his partner. Letting go felt like betrayal, like saying Titan's life didn't matter, like moving on. So Eli stopped sleeping, stopped talking to his team, stopped caring about anything except the hollow ache in his chest that felt like someone had carved out everything important and left him walking around empty. His commander put him on mandatory leave. 30 days. Get your head straight, Thorne. We need you sharp, or we don't need you at all. Eli spent the first week in his off-base cabin drinking bourbon and staring at Titan's collar. The second week, he stopped drinking because it didn't help. The third week, he started running. Miles and miles through the North Carolina pine forests, running until his lungs burned and his legs shook, running away from the memories that followed him anyway. It was during one of those runs, at dawn on a cold February morning, that he found himself on the edge of Fort Bragg's K-9 training facility. He'd been avoiding this place. Too many memories, too much pain. But something pulled him there that morning. Some instinct he couldn't name. The facility was just waking up. He could hear the dogs. Dozens of them. Barking, playing, training. The sounds that used to mean home. That used to mean purpose. Now they just meant loss. He was about to turn around to run back into the woods when he heard it. A sound that didn't fit. Not barking, not playing. Snarling. Savage and continuous. The sound of an animal that had given up on everything except rage. Eli found himself walking toward it, past the main kennels, past the training yards, to a separate building at the far edge of the compound. Isolated. Away from everything else. The sign on the door read, "Restricted area, authorized personnel only." Eli wasn't authorized, didn't care. He pushed through the door. The building was dimmer than the others. Colder. It felt wrong, like a place where things were kept rather than trained. There were 6 kennels. 5 empty. The 6th held the source of the sound. Eli approached slowly. His operator instincts kicked in despite everything. This was a threat assessment. This was a potentially hostile contact. But when he got close enough to see inside the kennel, something in his chest twisted. The dog was massive, bigger than Titan had been. A German shepherd with a sable and black coat that would have been beautiful if it wasn't matted and dull. He was pacing, back and forth, back and forth, a tight, frantic pattern that spoke of a mind on the edge of breaking. But it was the dog's eyes that stopped Eli cold. They were wild, feral, but underneath that wildness was something else. Pain, deep and bottomless. The dog froze when he noticed Eli, his lips pulled back, revealing teeth that had clearly been used as weapons. The snarl intensified, a warning, a promise. Stay back or I'll destroy you. Eli should have walked away. Should have reported the dangerous animal and gone back to his cabin and his misery. Instead, he crouched down, made himself smaller, non-threatening. "Hey," he said softly. The dog's snarl faltered for just a second. Confusion flickered across his face, like he'd forgotten that humans could speak in anything other than commands or threats. Then the rage returned, doubled. The dog launched himself at the kennel door. The impact was tremendous. The chain link rattled but held. Barely. Eli didn't flinch, didn't move. He just watched, and saw what nobody else had bothered to see. The dog wasn't trying to escape. He was trying to make Eli leave, trying to drive him away before something bad happened. He was trying to protect Eli from himself. "What the hell are you doing?" The voice came from behind, sharp, angry. Eli stood and turned. A staff sergeant was striding toward him. His name tape read, Harrison. His face was red with fury and something else. Fear. "This area is off limits, soldier. I don't care what rank you are. You need to leave. Now." Eli looked from Harrison back to the dog. "What's his name?" "That's not your concern. I'm making it my concern." Harrison's jaw tightened. He glanced at the dog, then back at Eli. "Havoc. His name is Havoc, and he's scheduled for termination at 1400 hours today. So unless you want to watch a dog get put down, I suggest you get out of here." Termination. The word hit Eli like a fist. "Why? Why?" Harrison looked at him like he was insane. "Because he's a danger to every human being who gets within 10 feet of him. He's put 3 handlers in the hospital in the last 8 months. The last one needed surgery to reattach muscles in his arm. This dog is broken, beyond fixing. The most humane thing we can do is end it." Eli turned back to the kennel. Havoc had stopped lunging. He was standing perfectly still now, watching, listening, like he understood every word. "What happened to him?" Eli asked. Harrison sighed. "You really want to know? Fine. Havoc came from a specialized breeding program in Belgium, one of those places that produces elite working dogs for military and police forces worldwide. Top-tier genetics, perfect temperament scores. He was supposed to be the next generation of canine warriors." "So what went wrong?" "His first handler, guy named Viktor Kozlov, former Soviet military, the kind of old-school trainer who believes in domination and punishment. Breaking the dog's spirit to rebuild it in his image." Harrison's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. Except Havoc didn't break. He resisted, so Kozlov got more aggressive, more brutal. Eli felt his hands forming fists. By the time anyone realized what was happening, the damage was done. Havoc attacked Kozlov during a training session, nearly killed him. After that, the dog was shipped here. We tried everything. Positive reinforcement, behavioral modification, medication. Nothing worked. He just got more violent, more unpredictable. "Or maybe," Eli said quietly, "he just stopped trusting humans." Harrison stared at him. "Look, I get it. You see a suffering animal, you want to help. But some things are beyond help. Some wounds don't heal. This dog has been through hell, and it broke something fundamental in him. The kindest thing, the only thing, is to let him go. Eli looked at Havoc again. The dog was still watching him, still silent, and Eli saw it, clear as day. That look wasn't rage, it was terror. Havoc wasn't attacking because he was vicious. He was attacking because he was terrified, because every human he'd ever trusted had hurt him, because fighting was the only way he knew to survive. Eli knew that feeling. He'd been living it for 3 months. "I want him," Eli said. Harrison blinked. "What?" "I want to work with him. I want to try." "Are you out of your mind? Did you not hear anything I just said? This dog is dangerous." "So am I." The words hung in the cold air between them. Harrison studied Eli's face, really looked at him for the first time, saw the hollow eyes, the weight loss, the barely controlled desperation. "You're that Delta operator," Harrison said slowly. "The one who lost his canine in Syria, Thorn." Eli said nothing. "Sir, with all due respect, this isn't the answer. You can't replace your dog with this one. It doesn't work that way." "I'm not trying to replace Titan." Eli's voice was rough, raw. "I'm trying to save something, anything, because if I don't, I'm not sure what happens next." The honesty of it seemed to hit Harrison hard. He looked at Havoc, at Eli, back at Havoc. "Even if I wanted to approve this, which I don't, it's not my call. This goes through Lieutenant Colonel Briggs. He's the one who signed the termination order. And he's not going to change his mind because a Delta operator on psych leave has a savior complex." "Then take me to him." "Sir, take me to him, now." Harrison must have seen something in Eli's face. Some echo of the operator he used to be, the man who didn't take no for an answer. He sighed. "Follow me. But when this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you." As they walked toward the main building, Eli glanced back one more time. Havoc was still standing at the front of his kennel, still watching. And for just a second, just a heartbeat, the snarl faded. Their eyes met. 2 broken creatures recognizing each other across the space between species, across the space between soldier and dog, across the vast desert of pain that both of them were drowning in. Eli didn't know if he could save this dog. He didn't even know if he could save himself. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. If Havoc died today, something in Eli would die with him, and he'd already lost too much. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Briggs was not a man who changed his mind easily. He sat behind his desk like a mountain, unmovable, unimpressed. He listened to Eli's request with the expression of someone who'd already made his decision and was simply being polite enough to let the other person finish speaking before he said no. When Eli finished, Briggs leaned back in his chair. "Master Sergeant Thorn, I've read your file. Your service record is exemplary. What happened to you and your team in Syria was a tragedy. I mean that sincerely. But what you're asking for is impossible. With respect, sir, nothing's impossible. That dog has been evaluated by the best trainers in the military. He's been seen by veterinary behaviorists. Every expert agrees. He's too far gone. The aggression is hardwired now. It's not a training problem. It's a neurological problem." "What if they're wrong?" Briggs's eyes narrowed. "You think you know better than a dozen trained professionals?" "I think I know what it feels like to have everyone give up on you." The room went quiet. Briggs studied Eli for a long moment. "You're on mandatory psychiatric leave, Sergeant. Your own fitness for duty is in question. And you want me to give you access to a dog that's already maimed 3 people. Do you understand how that sounds?" "I understand that dog is scheduled to die in 6 hours unless someone takes a chance on him." It's not a chance. It's suicide. That animal will hurt you, possibly kill you. Then at least I'll die trying to fix something instead of drowning in my own head. The raw honesty of it seemed to crack something in Briggs's professional armor. He rubbed his face. Looked at the file on his desk. Havoc's file, thick with incident reports and failure. Even if, and this is a massive if, even if I approved this insanity, there would be conditions, strict ones. Eli felt his heart start beating again. Name them. 30 days. That's it. You work with Havoc off-site, away from other personnel. You sign a liability waiver that would make a lawyer weep, and Dr. Chen oversees your progress. Both of you, the dog's behavior and your mental state. If either one deteriorates, it's over. The dog gets put down and you get discharged. Understood? Understood. Briggs shook his head. I'm going to regret this. I know I'm going to regret this, but something about the look in your eyes tells me if I say no, I'll regret that more. He pulled out a form, signed it, slid it across the desk. 30 days, Sergeant. Make them count. Eli took the form. His hand was shaking. Not from fear, from hope. The first emotion he'd felt in 3 months wasn't pain. He stood, saluted, turned to leave. Thorne, Briggs called after him. Eli stopped. That dog isn't Titan. Don't make him carry that weight. No, sir. He's not Titan. Eli's voice was quiet. Certain. He's Havoc. And maybe that's exactly what we both need. The paperwork took 3 hours. Liability waivers, medical releases, insurance forms that basically said if Havoc killed Eli, the army wasn't responsible. Harrison made him sign each one while explaining in graphic detail exactly what Havoc was capable of. He doesn't just bite, Harrison said, sliding another form across the table. He targets, goes for the throat, the inner thigh, anywhere that bleeds fast. He's not reacting. He's hunting. Eli signed without reading. By the time they transported Havoc to Eli's truck, the sun was high and hot. They'd sedated the dog. Not heavily, just enough to make the transfer possible without risking lives. Even sedated, Havoc's eyes tracked every movement, every person. When they loaded his crate into Eli's Ford F-250, the dog's lip curled in a silent snarl. Last chance to change your mind, Harrison said. Eli climbed into the driver's seat. See you in 30 days. The drive to his cabin took 40 minutes. Eli watched Havoc in the rearview mirror the entire time. The dog was awake now. Fully. The sedative wears off faster than it should have, because his body was pure adrenaline and survival instinct. No room for chemicals to slow him down. When they arrived, Eli backed the truck up to his porch. The cabin sat on 15 acres of dense North Carolina forest. No neighbors, no through traffic, just trees and silence. Perfect. He'd spent the morning preparing. He'd removed everything breakable from the main room, taken up the rugs, cleared the counters, created a space that was as neutral as possible, non-threatening. Now came the hard part. Getting Havoc out of the crate without anyone dying. Every training manual would tell you to establish dominance immediately. Show the dog who's in charge. Use a control collar, a muzzle. Maintain physical superiority. Eli did none of those things. Instead, he opened the truck's tailgate and sat down on the porch steps, 20 feet away from the crate. He didn't look at Havoc directly, didn't speak, didn't move, just sat. The sun climbed higher. An hour passed. Havoc was silent inside the crate. Watching. 2 hours. Eli's legs cramped. He shifted slightly, heard Havoc's growl rumble through the afternoon air. He stopped moving. 3 hours. The sun started its descent. Shadows grew long across the clearing. Eli finally spoke. His voice was low, calm. He wasn't talking to Havoc so much as thinking out loud. I know you're scared. I know everyone who's ever handled you has hurt you, or tried to control you, or wanted you to be something you're not. Havoc's growl intensified. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to force you to trust me. I'm not going to dominate you or break you or any of that alpha male nonsense. The growl faltered. Confusion. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open that crate, and then I'm going to go inside my cabin and leave the door open. You can come in, or you can run. Or you can sit in that crate until you starve. That's your choice, not mine. Eli stood slowly, every muscle screaming from sitting still for 3 hours. He walked to the crate, reached for the latch. Havoc exploded. The snarling was demonic, savage. The crate shook with the force of his fury. Eli's hand didn't shake. He flipped the latch. Then he turned his back on 95 pounds of rage and walked into his cabin. He left the door wide open, sat down at his kitchen table, and waited. The snarling stopped. Silence fell like a physical weight. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. Then Eli heard it, the soft click of claws on the truck bed, the whisper of movement. Havoc had left the crate. Eli didn't turn around, didn't look. He heard the dog jump down from the truck. I heard him move across the gravel. Stop at the base of the porch steps. More silence. Then, so quietly, Eli almost missed it, the sound of Havoc climbing the steps. The dog appeared in the doorway. He looked like a wild thing. Hackles raised, ears flat, every muscle coiled to spring. But he wasn't attacking. He was assessing. Eli met his eyes for just a second, then looked away, giving Havoc space, giving him control. There's water in that bowl by the wall, Eli said quietly. Food in the one next to it. Eat or don't, your call. Havoc stood in the doorway for a full 5 minutes. Then he moved. Fast. A blur of black and sable. He grabbed the entire food bowl in his jaws and dragged it into the corner farthest from Eli. Defensive. Protecting his resources. He ate like an animal who'd been starved, who didn't know when the next meal would come. When he finished, he didn't relax. He positioned himself in that far corner and lowered himself to the floor. His eyes never left Eli. They stayed like that until the sun went down. When darkness fell, Eli stood. Havoc's entire body tensed. I'm going to bed, Eli said. You're welcome to sleep wherever you want, but my bedroom door stays closed. That's my space. Everything else is yours. He walked to his bedroom, closed the door, locked it. Not to keep Havoc out. To give the dog proof that Eli wasn't coming for him in the night. Eli lay on his bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. He'd just locked himself in a cabin with a dog that had hospitalized 3 men. Dr. Chen would have him committed if she knew. But for the first time since Titan died, Eli felt something. Not peace, not happiness. Purpose. He fell asleep to the sound of Havoc pacing in the next room. The first week was hell. Havoc barely ate, barely drank. He spent his days in that corner, watching Eli with eyes that promised violence. Eli maintained his routine. He woke at dawn, made coffee, sat at the table, read, worked on his laptop, moved through the cabin like Havoc wasn't there. He never approached the dog, never tried to touch him, never even looked directly at him for more than a second. It was the opposite of every training protocol that existed. It was also the only thing that might work. Because here's what Eli understood that the trainers didn't. Havoc didn't need to be dominated. He needed to feel safe. And you can't force safety. You can only offer it, consistently, patiently, until the traumatized creature decides to accept it. On day 4, Havoc moved. Not toward Eli, but closer to the center of the room, away from the defensive corner. Progress. On day 6, Eli was reading when he felt eyes on him. He looked up. Havoc was staring at him. Not with rage, with curiosity. "Hey," Eli said softly. Havoc's ears twitched, the first non-aggressive response. On day 8, Eli had his first visitor. Dr. Sarah Chen knocked on the door at 0900 hours. She'd called ahead, warned him she was coming. Eli answered the door, stepped outside, closed it behind him. "How is he?" Dr. Chen asked. "Alive, not eating much, hasn't attacked me yet. And you? How are you sleeping?" "Better." It was true. The nightmares hadn't stopped, but they'd gotten quieter. Like Havoc's presence was a buffer against the worst of them. "I need to see him, Eli. That's part of the agreement." Eli nodded. "He's not going to like this. New person means threat. He'll either hide or attack. I'll stay by the door. I just need to observe." They went inside. Havoc was in his corner. The moment he saw Dr. Chen, his entire demeanor changed. The snarl came back, low and deadly. Dr. Chen froze. "Oh my God!" "Don't look at him directly," Eli said calmly. "Sit down. Make yourself small." She did. Her hands were shaking. Havoc rose to his feet, every hair on his body standing up. He looked twice his size. And then something happened that made Dr. Chen gasp. Eli moved between her and the dog. Not aggressively, not as a challenge. He just positioned himself as a barrier, protecting her, but also protecting Havoc from having to make a choice about whether to attack. "It's okay," Eli said, not to Dr. Chen, to Havoc. "She's not here to hurt you. She's not staying long. It's okay." The snarl continued, but Havoc didn't move, didn't attack. He was trusting Eli to handle the threat. The realization hit Dr. Chen like a freight train. She could see it on her face. After 10 minutes, she stood slowly. "I've seen enough. Eli, outside." On the porch, she turned to him with wonder in her eyes. "He responded to you. He actually responded." "He tolerated me being between him and a stranger. That's not the same thing." "It's more than anyone else has gotten. Do you understand what you just did? You established yourself as a protector, not a threat. That's revolutionary for a dog with his history." Eli shrugged. "I just didn't want either of you to get hurt." "Exactly." Dr. Chen smiled. "Keep doing whatever you're doing. I'll tell Colonel Briggs you're making progress." After she left, Eli went back inside. Havoc was still standing, still on alert. But when Eli sat down at his table, the dog slowly lowered himself back to the floor. Message received. Threat gone. Stand down. They were learning each other's language. Week 2 brought the first real breakthrough. Eli was outside chopping wood. It was therapeutic. The rhythm, the physical exertion, the simple cause and effect of a meeting log. He'd left the cabin door open, giving Havoc the choice. He didn't expect the dog to come out. But an hour into his work, Eli felt that familiar sensation. Being watched. He turned. Havoc was standing on the porch, in full sunlight, visible, vulnerable. Eli went back to chopping. Didn't acknowledge him. Didn't make it a thing. 5 minutes later, Havoc was sitting on the porch steps. 10 minutes after that, he was lying in the grass 15 feet away, just watching Eli work. It was the first time Havoc had voluntarily left the cabin, the first time he'd chosen to be near Eli. That night, Eli sat on the porch with his dinner. He'd made 2 plates, Put one down on the far end of the porch. Havoc's plate. The dog emerged from the cabin, looked at the food. At Eli. He took his plate and retreated to the yard. But he didn't go far. They ate dinner together for the first time. 20 feet apart. But together. The opposition came in week 3. Staff Sergeant Harrison showed up unannounced, with Colonel Briggs, and they brought someone else, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a professional air. She introduced herself as Dr. Patricia Alvarez, veterinary behaviorist. "I've been following your case," she said. "Dr. Chen showed me her reports. What you're doing is fascinating, but I need to see it for myself." Eli felt his defenses rise. This isn't a circus. No, it's a potential breakthrough in trauma recovery for military working dogs. If what you're doing actually works, it could change everything. But I need data, observations, proof. Colonel Briggs stepped forward. "This is non-negotiable, Sergeant," Dr. Alvarez observes. "If she approves, you get more time. If she doesn't, it's over." Eli wanted to argue. "I wanted to tell them all to leave." But he saw the calculation in Briggs's eyes. The 30 days were almost up. This was the only way to get an extension. "Fine, but she stays outside. Havoc isn't ready for close contact." They set up chairs in the clearing, 50 feet from the cabin. Eli went through his routine, making breakfast, moving around the cabin, existing. Havoc was agitated. New people, new energy. But he didn't attack, didn't hide. He stayed in his corner and watched. An hour passed. Dr. Alvarez was making notes. Harrison looked skeptical. Briggs looked impatient. Then Eli did something he hadn't done before. He sat on the floor, not close to Havoc, but not at the table, on the dog's level, and he just existed there. Minutes passed. Then Havoc stood. Harrison tensed. "Sir, he's moving." "Don't," Eli said quietly. "Don't react." Havoc walked across the room. Dr. Alvarez leaned forward, her pen frozen in midair. The dog stopped 5 feet from Eli. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Havoc's tail moved. Not a wag, just a slight shift. Acknowledgement. Then he turned and walked back to his corner. Dr. Alvarez was staring with her mouth open. "That dog just initiated proximity," she whispered. "On his own terms, without any coercion or reward structure. That's not supposed to be possible with his profile." She stood, walked to Colonel Briggs. "He needs more time, much more time. What we just witnessed is the foundation of trust being built. But it's fragile. If you pull him now, you'll destroy everything." "How much more time?" Briggs asked. "Another 30 days. Minimum." Harrison shook his head. "Colonel, with respect, we're gambling with this soldier's life. That dog is still dangerous." "That dog just chose not to be dangerous," Dr. Alvarez countered. "That's the point. He's making choices, which means he's healing." Briggs looked at Eli. "What do you think, Sergeant?" Eli looked at Havoc. The dog was watching him, waiting. "I think we've barely started." Briggs was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. 30 more days. But Dr. Alvarez visits weekly. Any regression, any incident, and this experiment ends. After they left, Eli sat on the porch. His hands were shaking. Not from fear, from relief. Havoc appeared in the doorway. He looked at Eli, at the empty clearing where the visitors had been. Then he walked out onto the porch and sat down. 3 feet away from Eli, the closest he'd ever been. They sat there as the sun set. 2 broken creatures learning that maybe, just maybe, broken wasn't permanent. Maybe the broken could be rebuilt. Different than before. but whole in a new way. The next week, everything changed. Eli woke at 0300 hours in a cold sweat. The nightmare had been worse than usual, more vivid. He could still feel Titan's blood on his hands, could still hear that sound. He was gasping, shaking, his heart was hammering against his ribs, and then he heard something at his door. Scratching. Soft, but insistent. He got up, opened the door. Havoc was standing there, his ears forward, his eyes focused, not aggressive, concerned. "I'm okay," Eli said automatically. Havoc tilted his head, a gesture that was so dog-like, so normal it made Eli's throat tight. The dog turned and walked to the couch, looked back at Eli, then jumped up and settled there. An invitation. Eli followed. Sat on the opposite end of the couch. Havoc was lying down, relaxed in a way Eli had never seen. And slowly, inch by inch, Eli lay down too. They stayed like that until dawn, on opposite ends of the couch, not touching, but together. When morning came, Eli made coffee with a strange lightness in his chest. Havoc had heard him in distress, had responded, had offered comfort in the only way he knew how. The untamable dog was becoming a partner. Dr. Alvarez's next visit confirmed it. She watched as Havoc now followed Eli outside, stayed close during wood chopping, ate his meals only 10 feet away. "This is extraordinary," she said. "His entire body language has changed. He's not defensive anymore. He's cautious, yes, but not defensive. That's huge." "He's still got a long way to go," Eli said. "So do you." She looked at him carefully. "Dr. Chen tells me your nightmares have decreased. Your psych evaluations are improving. This dog is healing you as much as you're healing him." Eli didn't argue, because it was true, but not everyone was celebrating. Staff Sergeant Harrison arrived the next day with news. "There's been a complaint," he said. His face was grim. "Lieutenant Colonel Briggs is under pressure. Some people at Division think this whole thing is a waste of resources. They want Havoc put down and you returned to full duty or discharged." "Who complained?" "Does it matter? The point is, you've got 2 weeks left on your extension, and you need to show something concrete. Not just progress, results. Proof that Havoc can function as a working dog." "What kind of proof?" Harrison handed him a sheet of paper. "Basic obedience evaluation. If he can pass this, it buys you more time. If he can't—" Eli looked at the requirements. Sit, stay, heel, come. Basic commands any trained dog should know. Havoc knew none of them, because Eli hadn't taught him anything. He'd been so focused on building trust, he'd forgotten that the military didn't care about trust. They cared about function. After Harrison left, Eli sat on the porch with his head in his hands. Havoc approached, closer than ever before. He pushed his nose against Eli's arm. "We've got a problem, buddy," Eli said quietly. Havoc's tail wagged, slow but definite, the first real wag Eli had seen. And despite everything, Eli smiled. "All right, let's teach you some tricks." Teaching Havoc basic commands should have been impossible. Every training manual said you start with obedience on day 1. You establish the foundation before anything else. Commands, structure, control. Eli had done everything backward, and now he had 10 days to teach a dog who'd spent his entire life rejecting authority to suddenly accept it. The first attempt was a disaster. Eli stood in the clearing with a handful of treats. "Sit," he said firmly. Havoc stared at him, confusion and something else flickering across his face. Suspicion. Commands meant pain in Havoc's world. They meant being forced into submission, being hurt if you didn't comply fast enough. He backed away. "No, hey, it's okay. Eli softened his voice, knelt down. I'm not going to hurt you. But the damage was done. Havoc retreated to the cabin. Eli sat in the grass and swore. He'd built trust by giving Havoc freedom. Now he needed obedience. The two things seemed fundamentally incompatible. That night, Dr. Alvarez called. I heard about the evaluation requirement, she said. I want you to know, I think it's premature. You've done remarkable work with him. This timeline is unrealistic. So what do I do? She was quiet for a moment. Reframe it. You've been teaching Havoc that he has choices, that he's safe. Now you need to teach him that choosing to follow your lead isn't the same as being forced to submit. It's cooperation, partnership. How? Make the commands about him, not you. Make them rewarding for him, and most importantly, give him the ability to say no. The military doesn't accept no from working dogs. Then maybe the military needs to evolve. Her voice was sharp, passionate. What you're doing here, Eli, it's bigger than one dog. You're proving that trauma doesn't have to be permanent. That broken doesn't mean disposable. Don't give up on that. After she hung up, Eli went outside. Havoc was on the porch. His usual spot now. Eli sat next to him. Close enough their shoulders almost touched. I need to ask you something, Eli said quietly. And I need you to understand I'll respect whatever answer you give. Havoc's ear swiveled toward him. These people, they need to see you do tricks, sit, stay, all that stuff. And I know that's probably terrifying for you. I know commands mean bad things in your history. The dog was perfectly still, listening. But here's the thing. If we don't show them you can do this, they're going to take you away from me. They're going to kill you, and I can't let that happen. Eli's voice cracked. So I'm asking you to trust me one more time. Trust that when I give you a command, it's not to control you. It's to save you. Can you do that? Havoc turned his head. Their eyes met. And slowly the dog leaned into Eli, his weight pressing against him. Yes, the next morning they started again. But this time Eli changed everything. He didn't stand over Havoc. He sat beside him. He didn't use a harsh command voice. He spoke normally, like he was having a conversation. So here's how this works. I'm going to say sit, and if you sit, you get this treat, and we both feel good about it. If you don't want to sit, that's okay too. We'll just try again later. He held the treat up. Sit. Havoc looked at him, at the treat, at Eli's face. Then slowly his haunches lowered to the ground. Eli's heart nearly stopped. Good boy. He gave Havoc the treat and scratched behind his ears. That was perfect. You're perfect. Havoc's tail wagged. They practiced for an hour. Just sit. Over and over. And every single time, Havoc chose to comply. Not because he was forced. Because he understood it made Eli happy. And somewhere in the last 4 weeks, Havoc had decided that Eli's happiness mattered. Over the next week, they added more commands. Stay was harder. It required Havoc to let Eli walk away, to trust he'd come back. The first time Eli said stay and took 3 steps back, Havoc broke immediately. Followed him, anxious. It's okay, Eli soothed. I'm not leaving, I'm right here. By day 3, Havoc could stay for 30 seconds. By day 5, a full minute. Heel was the breakthrough. Havoc had been walking beside Eli for weeks now. Their morning routine included a walk through the woods, side by side. Partners. All Eli had to do was put a word to what they already did naturally. Come was the easiest command of all. Because Havoc had been choosing to come to Eli on his own for 3 weeks now. On the morning of the evaluation, Eli woke with his stomach in knots. Havoc sensed his anxiety. He pressed close as Eli made coffee, followed him everywhere. "Today's the day, buddy," Eli said. "You ready?" Havoc's tail wagged uncertainly. They drove to Fort Bragg at 800 hours. The evaluation was scheduled for 1,000. Colonel Briggs would be there, Dr. Alvarez, Dr. Chen, and a panel of 3 military working dog specialists who'd flown in specifically to assess whether Havoc was salvageable. The evaluation would take place in one of the training yards, a controlled environment. When they arrived, Eli could feel the tension. Harrison was there, looking nervous. He pulled Eli aside. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "The panel, they've already made their decision. They think this whole thing has been a waste of time. They're only here because regulations require an in-person assessment before termination. They're not expecting him to pass. So this is a formality. Worse, it's execution with paperwork." Eli felt his jaw tighten. "We'll see about that." He walked Havoc to the training yard. The dog was tense. So many new people, new smells, the scent of hundreds of other dogs who'd trained here. The panel sat at a table, 3 stone-faced officers with clipboards. Colonel Briggs stood off to the side, Dr. Alvarez next to him. She gave Eli a small, encouraging nod. One of the panel members, a stern woman with Colonel's eagles on her uniform, spoke. "Master Sergeant Thorne, we're here to evaluate the subject, Havoc, for basic working dog compliance. You'll demonstrate the 5 basic commands: sit, stay, heel, down, come. The subject must perform each command successfully 3 consecutive times. Any aggression results in immediate failure and termination. Are these terms clear?" "Crystal clear, Mom. You may begin." Eli took a breath, looked down at Havoc. The dog was staring up at him, trust in his eyes. "Sit," Eli said. Havoc sat immediately. "Good boy." Eli kept his voice calm, rewarded him with a treat. They repeated it 3 times. Perfect. The panel made notes, expressions unreadable. "Stay." This was harder. Eli walked 10 feet away. Havoc's eyes tracked him, his muscles tensed, but he stayed. 15 seconds, 30, a full minute. "Come." Havoc broke position and trotted to Eli. Sat at his feet. 3 perfect repetitions. The panel exchanged glances, surprise creeping into their professional masks. "Heel." Eli walked a circuit around the yard. Havoc matched his pace perfectly, right at his left knee, like they'd been doing this for years. 3 perfect repetitions. The final command: down. This was the one Eli worried about most. Down was a position of ultimate vulnerability, lying flat, exposed. For a dog with Havoc's trauma, it was asking for complete trust. "Down," Eli said softly. Havoc hesitated. Eli could see the conflict in his eyes, the command warring with his survival instincts. "It's okay," Eli murmured. "I've got you." Slowly, Havoc lowered himself to the ground. He did it 3 times. Perfect. The yard was silent. The panel was staring, not with skepticism anymore, with shock. The lead colonel cleared her throat. That was acceptable. However, basic obedience is only one factor. We need to assess the subject's stability under stress. His ability to distinguish between genuine threats and non-threats. She nodded to Harrison. "Sergeant, approach the subject in an aggressive manner. Simulate a threat. We need to see his response." Eli's blood went cold. "Mom, that's not necessary. He's demonstrated. It's protocol, Sergeant. A working dog must be able to assess threats appropriately. If he attacks a non-threat, he fails." Harrison looked sick. Colonel, I don't think that's an order, Sergeant. Harrison swallowed hard. He looked at Eli, at Havoc. Then he started walking toward them. His movements were exaggerated, aggressive, arms wide, making himself big. Havoc's entire body went rigid, his lips pulled back. That familiar snarl started deep in his chest. Easy, Eli said quietly. Easy, boy. He's not a real threat. He's a friend. But Havoc was locked on Harrison, every instinct screaming at him to defend, to attack, to survive. Harrison took another step. Havoc's snarl intensified. Havoc! Eli's voice was calm, certain. Heel! For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Havoc backed up, moved to Eli's left side, still tense, still alert, but not attacking. He'd chosen trust over instinct. The panel was speechless. Harrison stopped, let out a breath he'd been holding. Remarkable, the lead colonel said quietly. She looked at her colleagues. They were nodding, making notes. She stood. Master Sergeant Thorne, in my 20 years evaluating military working dogs, I have never seen a rehabilitation like this. This animal was scheduled for immediate termination. He had no behavioral scores above failure threshold, and you've turned him into a functional, responsive working dog in less than 60 days. She looked at Colonel Briggs. Sir, it's my recommendation that not only should Havoc be retained, but that Master Sergeant Thorne's methods be studied and potentially implemented across our K9 programs. This is groundbreaking work. Briggs stepped forward. For the first time since Eli had met him, the colonel was smiling. Sergeant Thorne, effective immediately, Havoc is officially assigned to you as your K9 partner. You're both cleared to return to active duty pending final medical and psychological evaluations. Eli felt the words hit him like a physical force. They'd done it. Havoc was safe. He looked down at his partner. The dog who everyone had given up on, who'd been beaten and broken and declared beyond saving. Havoc looked back up at him, tail wagging. Not the wild, untamable beast from that first day. A partner, a friend, a dog who'd chosen to heal. But the real test came 3 days later. Eli was in town, a rare trip for supplies. Havoc was with him, wearing his official K9 vest for the first time. They were walking past the elementary school when they heard it. Gunshots, multiple, rapid fire. Chaos erupted. People are screaming, running. Eli's training kicked in immediately. Active shooter, stay down! He pulled his sidearm, started moving towards the school. Havoc was right beside him. Havoc, no, stay! But the dog didn't stay. He'd heard something Eli hadn't, the high-pitched scream of a child. Havoc took off running, straight towards the school entrance. Havoc! Eli sprinted after him. Inside it was chaos, teachers evacuating children. The smell of gunpowder was thick in the air. And at the end of the main hallway, a figure in black, gun raised. The shooter was young, maybe 20. His hands were shaking, his eyes went wild, and directly in his line of fire, frozen in terror, was a little girl, maybe 7 years old. She'd been separated from her class. The shooter's finger was on the trigger. Havoc didn't hesitate. He launched himself down that hallway like a missile. 95 pounds of protective fury. The shooter turned, saw the dog, started to swing his weapon around, too slow. Havoc hit him at full speed, jaws clamping down on the gun arm. The weapon clattered to the floor. They went down in a tangle. The shooter was screaming. But Havoc wasn't mauling him. He was controlling him, holding him down until the threat was neutralized, exactly like he'd been trained to do in another life, before the abuse, before the trauma, The instincts were still there. The training. The drive to protect. Eli reached them seconds later, secured the shooter, called it in. Police arrived within minutes. But it was Havoc who'd stopped it. Havoc who'd saved that little girl's life. The news crews showed up within the hour. By that evening, Havoc's face was on every major news outlet in the country. Miracle Dog saves child from school shooter. From death row to hero, the untamable dog who became a lifesaver. Delta Force operator and rescue dog stop active shooter. The story went viral. Within 48 hours, Eli's phone was ringing off the hook. News interviews, documentary offers, book deals. He ignored all of it, because none of that mattered. What mattered was sitting on his porch 3 weeks later with Dr. Alvarez, Dr. Chen, and Colonel Briggs. "We want to create a program," Dr. Alvarez said. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "Based on your methods, for dogs like Havoc, the ones who've been traumatized, the ones everyone else gives up on. It would be called the Second Chance Canine Initiative." Dr. Chen added, "You'd run it, train other handlers, show them how to build trust instead of demanding obedience." Briggs leaned forward. "The Army is prepared to commit significant resources to this. We're talking about potentially saving hundreds of dogs, and helping hundreds of soldiers deal with their own trauma in the process." Eli looked at Havoc. The dog was lying in the grass, completely relaxed. A butterfly landed on his nose. He went cross-eyed, trying to look at it. This was the same dog who'd been hours from execution. The same dog who everyone said was beyond saving. "On one condition," Eli said. "Name it. No dog gets put down without exhausting every option. No dog gets declared hopeless. Every single one deserves the chance Havoc got." Briggs extended his hand. "Deal." 6 months later, the Second Chance Canine Initiative graduated its first class. 7 dogs who'd been on death row. 7 handlers who'd been struggling with their own demons. All of them paired up. All of them are healing together. Eli stood in front of them on graduation day. Havoc sitting calmly at his side. "People are going to tell you this is about training dogs," Eli said. "It's not. It's about recognizing that trauma doesn't define anyone, human or animal. It's about understanding that broken isn't the same as beyond repair." He looked at each handler, each dog. These dogs didn't need someone to dominate them. They needed someone to see them, to give them space to heal, to prove that trust is possible even after it's been shattered. He paused, his voice getting rough. "A smart person once told me that some wounds don't heal, but I think that's wrong. I think every wound can heal. Maybe not the way it was before. Maybe the scar tissue is always there. But healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means learning to live with it, learning to be whole again in a different way." After the ceremony, a young handler approached. Her name was Lieutenant Sophie Martinez. Her dog, a scarred Malinois named Rogue, sat obediently beside her. "Sir, I just wanted to say thank you. 3 months ago, they told me Rogue was going to be put down, that he was too aggressive, too damaged, and I was about to be discharged because of my panic attacks." "We were both done." She looked at her dog with tears in her eyes. "But this program saved both of us. He's not just my canine. He's the reason I'm still here." Eli knew exactly what she meant, because Havoc had done the same thing for him. That night, Eli and Havoc drove back to the cabin. Their home. The place where everything had changed. Eli sat on the porch steps as the sun set, Havoc's head resting on his knee. "You know what's funny?" Eli said quietly. "Everyone thinks I saved you. But that's not how it happened at all, is it?" Havoc's tail thumped. You saved me first. You gave me a reason to wake up, a reason to try. You showed me that healing is possible even when it seems impossible. He scratched behind Havoc's ears. Colonel Briggs was right. You're not Titan. You never could be. But you're something better. You're Havoc. And you're exactly who I needed. They sat there as darkness fell. Two warriors who'd found each other at the absolute worst moment of their lives, who'd been told they were broken beyond repair, who'd proven everyone wrong. The stars came out, bright and endless above the Carolina pines, and for the first time since Syria, Eli felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Peace, not because the pain was gone. The nightmares still came sometimes. The memories of Titan still hurt. But because he'd learned what Havoc had taught him, that you can carry your scars and still move forward, that brokenness can become strong, that the things everyone else gives up on might just be the things worth fighting for the most. Havoc shifted, looked up at Eli with those intelligent eyes, and in that look was everything. Trust, love, partnership. Two souls who'd found each other in the darkness and chose to walk back into the light together. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear that redemption is possible. That broken doesn't mean finished. That sometimes the things we're told to give up on are exactly the things that will save us. Leave a comment below and tell us about a time when someone or something that seemed beyond hope proved everyone wrong. We read every single one. And please subscribe to our channel for more stories that prove love, patience, and faith can heal even the deepest wounds. We want to pray for everyone watching this. May you find the strength to keep fighting when everyone tells you to give up. May you find someone who sees past your scars to the warrior underneath. And may you always remember that your darkest moment might be right before your greatest breakthrough. If you believe that every soul deserves a second chance, type Amen in the comments below. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing. And remember, sometimes the most untamable things just need someone brave enough to earn their trust. God bless you all.